Well, hello friends, this here's David Vose. Today is September 29th, 2015. It's great to see everybody today. Well folks, today I've got some information I'd like to share with you. Some thoughts I've had over the day. Was thinking about this over the last couple of days. The subject is energy, electricity, all the different machines and things that we use on the earth today. Several sort of parts to that. One is the aspect of alternative energy, alternative fuel, that kind of thing. Is that something that we should be thinking about as a people, as a human race, as individuals? Or is there something even morally wrong with the entire concept of having things and creations and inventions? Some of my videos I've talked about having inventions and how most all that's just not from our Father in heaven. Our Father in heaven created the world and it was good. And so then some people came along and made all these inventions, and kind of like the Tower of Babel, they were trying to to get to heaven, to be like God. So early in the scriptures, in the first few chapters of Genesis, it talks about Cain's line and how he began to invent things. And they invented the harp and tents to dwell in, or homes. And it sounds innocent, doesn't it, really? But look what it's gotten down to now. We build homes, and they're just full of luxury. You say, well, there's nothing wrong with luxury. There isn't. I intend to get me a jacuzzi. But remember what the Apostle Paul says. He says, we're not bound by anything. We're free. We can do anything we want. But he says, not only are we allowed to do anything we want, all things are lawful. Not everything is advantageous. See, it's fine. I have the right to build a car, although human beings couldn't build cars without factories and a worldwide effort that we're going through here. But building a car is our right, except for it's not advantageous. It's like I have the right to eat poison, but that would kill me, so I don't want to do that. And then he talks about this concept that I'm not in bondage to anything, but I don't want anything to be something that is going to bring me into bondage. In other words, you have this house, right? It's this beautiful house that's so amazing, right? But it's so expensive that you're now in bondage to the house. But basically, you work for the house. You become a slave to your house. So right there is pretty easy to see from Paul's reasoning that we are not to be slaves to anyone or anything. That possessions, if we have this concept of possessions, then we become enslaved to the possessions. It's some kind of natural order of things in this physical world. Our bodies become addicted to things. Our minds, our hearts, we become deceived and pulled, and then we become a slave. Things aren't good for us, and so we have to be careful, in other words. But does this mean then that all inventions are wrong? That we shouldn't use electricity, and we shouldn't live in homes, and all of us should go out in the desert and just live around a campfire? Well, that's one way you can look at things. I mean, let's define that, right? Why can you build a fire then, right? Maybe we should just sit there and do nothing. Is that what we're talking about? No, obviously we weren't made to do nothing. We were designed for something. And rocks are laying all over the place. We can use these rocks and put them around the fire. That's something we can do. We can build a fire, get warmth. Obviously there's a purpose in that. Cook food, boil water. There's sticks all over the place. If you've ever noticed that elephants naturally have these tusks, and they can scoop logs up in those tusks, and their trunk can go around and hold it. And it acts just like a forklift or something. Just about everything human beings need is provided for us. You need to travel, we got horses, camels. Camels can travel in the desert area because they can store water in their hump. They can go for miles and miles and miles without getting thirsty. So there's a purpose for things. And obviously, we just showed where evidently Father in heaven thought maybe we might need an elephant to haul lumber. So what we're going to do with lumber, unless we're supposed to build houses, right? So obviously, human beings have a natural desire to travel, to build houses, to do different things, to fly. We can't fly, we don't have wings, but we build rope and hang from a tree and fly. These are things that we naturally have an inclination to do. However, when we start building cities and get people, lure them into the inner cities, and then it becomes a bondage to them, there's crime and there's evils in there, that's wrong. When we build a tower with the intentions of reaching heaven to become like God, then it's wrong. But there isn't anything wrong with building a modest home, someplace to get out of the rain, because as human beings, we don't have clothes. So we have to actually make clothes for ourselves to keep warm in cold climates. See, we're the only animal other than snakes that actually are naked, really. And actually the Bible says that. It says in Genesis chapter 3, verse 1, it says, "And the serpent was the most cunning of all the wild animals that Jehovah had made." Well, the word cunning, if you look at it in the Strong's Concordance, also can mean naked. So, smooth or bare and naked. And snakes are bare and smooth and naked. But it also means that they're cunning and sly. It has a kind of a two-dimensional dual meaning. Well, human beings are also very cunning and wise. But we're also born without hair all over our bodies, and we have to make clothes. And that's why there are several reasons why human beings need to find clothes. Not just to cover our shame, but also because of the curse of this earth, there's winter, and there's thorns and thistles, and it doesn't produce, and the world is not producing the way it should, and so the climate is not helpful sometimes. So we have to have clothes. The animals have these thick furs, and they don't need clothes. So that teaches us that human beings are not like the other animals. That we were born and created naked, and our Father in heaven provides for us. Interestingly enough, in the scripture, after Adam and Eve sinned, they went and got fig leaves to cover themselves. And then after that, under the old law and throughout the last 2,000 years, human beings have used animal skins to clothe themselves. The word for that is atonement. So today people think, oh, that's some kind of religious word, atonement. We got to go to church or something to get atonement. But really that just means to cover. And the animal skin was used to make atonement or to cover you. First thing that happened there in the garden was that they got covered after they sinned. They were going to hide in their shame, right? They were going to use fig leaves, or the very tree that they used and partook of, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Jesus cursed the fig tree and says, "May there never be any fruit upon you ever again." He was cursing that entire system of Satan, that garden. He was cursing that serpent and that tree of knowledge of good and evil. And so they tried to hide and cover themselves with that. And then Jehovah comes along and gives them the skin, animal skins, and says they can eat meat. And through blood, they can be atoned. By the shedding of blood, they acquire this covering. But that covering, that's not our covering. That's not how we're supposed to be atoned for. See, because that covering is a bloody sacrifice, and it's not natural. And we don't need animal skins to cover ourselves. But righteous people use white garments, white outer garments, which is made from linen or cotton. See, that's something you find from nature. It's not from you don't get it from an animal, but it's woven, and human beings have to weave it. And this perfect woven clothes is kind of like saying that this beautiful white pure garment cannot be woven by human beings. But our Father in heaven provided for our covering. Just as Jehovah provided this animal skin, this bloody sacrifice, our Father in heaven gave us our Lord Jesus Christ, the inner spiritual man, which covers for our sins. So we really don't need to work for salvation, because that bloody sacrifice came with all kinds of laws, right? You're a sinner, and you're cursed, and you're no good, and you're condemned, you're under condemnation. But now, see, the Bible says that we're going to be given these robes of righteousness for free. It's not even our righteousness, but they're provided for us by our Lord Jesus Christ. He gives them to us. So, covering is something that is both spiritually and physically necessary for human beings. And so in the spiritual sense, it's already been provided for us. Everything that we need. He's going to give us these white robes. And in a physical sense, everything else has been provided for us as well. Our covering, our physical needs. Covering can represent our home too, because they used animal skins to build tents. And to go inside and seek shelter. So also, we seek shelter in the natural realm from things our Father in heaven has provided for us. Like I said, the elephant naturally has these tusks, and they can pick up logs, and they can be used to bring in the logs, and we can build a home. This is very natural. And we have the intelligence to do this. And there isn't anything wrong with that. We need to build our homes and go out into the field and find cotton and weave it and make, so human beings do have a certain amount of works. There's things that we can do, and we enjoy doing it. But these are all very natural things. Things that we can do because they've been provided for us in nature. And so I believe that when we look out into nature, everything that we really need has been provided. There are logs, we can build a home, rocks, we can stack them on each other. But when we start taking these, and saying, well, these rocks aren't good enough, we're going to have to make these things better, right? We're going to invent a way outside of nature, outside of the natural way. We're going to take these things, we're going to add bitumen and straw and put some clay in there and design this thing just the way we want, flat. Now we can stack these suckers way up there. And we're going to build a tower to reach God. See, human concepts can sometimes be very, very bad, because we're trying to go around the natural way and do something better, but it always leads to a bunch of heartache. You say, well, cars are great. The problem is you've got to dig the earth up and get all the oil out of the ground. It's polluting the world. And cars driving 100 miles an hour is taking man from where they used to be. They grew up thousands of miles away on ships and airplanes. And they end up living places where they don't have family. And it destroys the family unit. So there's a lot of things that you get outside of the natural ways nature provided, and you try to do it your own way, you run into problems. Because our Father in heaven created a perfect world. That doesn't mean that He didn't give us a brain. And He didn't give us elephants to take trees down and build houses. It doesn't mean that He didn't give us cotton that you can weave into fine clothes and linen, and that we can't do the things that we naturally do. I mean, it's like you go to an ant farm, and those ants are building themselves a house. Father in heaven's provided everything for them to do what they're doing, and they seem like they just natural. They're just doing what they do, what ants do. And that's the way humans are. I don't know if any of you have ever Star Trek fans, but the original Star Trek series, I used to love it. I used to watch it. This one particular episode where Captain Kirk gets stranded on this planet, and it looks like there's nobody there, but it turns out that this weird looking Tyrannosaurus Rex or something is on this planet, and this thing's supposed to be intelligent and stuff. So there are these higher, more advanced beings that are up in their ship. They're watching, and they've set this thing up to where they're trying to see which of these two species is going to survive or is going to win. And they're pitting humans against this dinosaur creature, alien race. Well, of course, Captain Kirk ends up winning this thing. But as he's going around, he's trying to, he doesn't have the strength to beat this monster. This thing's strong. This tail is just going to kill him. And the thing's intelligent. But Captain Kirk, of course, as a human, was much more intelligent. And he's going along and he's finding stuff to make gunpowder. And he's, can make this rocket and he can destroy this thing with a rocket. So here the human race is able to overcome something much stronger through intelligence. So it's kind of fitting that series, that program, because that's what I'm talking about. We humans do have that capacity to go into the natural realm and find things that were designed for things that we can use to improve our life. We find cotton, we find out, we can weave this. We find rocks, we can stack these. And so gunpowder exists. Should we have guns? Where does this end? You see, this is the thing we've got to determine. We know for a fact that Father in Heaven provided certain things on this planet for us to use. And, you can stack rocks, you can stack boards, you can make a home. We know that we have to have a home. We know that we have to be clothed. And so, as human beings, we do have to have some form of civilization. We have to build fires to stay warm. But then we also know that common sense tells us that we have these airplanes that are combustible engines and it's polluting the earth. So here's the thing. That is something to think about while we talk about energy. Because you see, today, the energy source that we have is, electricity that's coming from these power plants. Most of these power plants, either nuclear power plants, which we know is dangerous. It's just crazy. I can't believe that we human beings decided to go ahead and try this. Because there's so many people in Tokyo and New York and some of these cities that they've got to have enough power and electricity for all these people, and they can't seem to get any other way to do it other than nuclear. Now that's why New York is there, because not too far from there, there's the Niagara Falls, and that provided those people with a lot of energy. If you go over to Las Vegas, the only reason there's a big city there is because they've got the dam, Hoover Dam, and that provides them with water and electricity. And so these huge cities have to use all this energy, and they have to have a way to do it. But in many places, like in France, Paris, France, and different, like Japan, they've got to come up with a way to provide energy for all these people. So they use stuff like nuclear power plants. It's dangerous. And I'll guarantee you this, our Father in Heaven doesn't want us to do that. It is insane. It's trying to build a tower to heaven and be like God, really, to play God, because they're messing with something that they don't even know what they're talking about, and it's dangerous. So we know that there's an extreme that we shouldn't get involved with. So what do? We've got all these people on the earth. Well, here's the thing. They're lying to us because they're greedy. Energy is a free, just like, Captain Kirk found everything he needed to make this rocket or whatever, dynamite and he found a diamond, and he found a tube that he could, basically shoot a projectile from. He found sulfur, and he put all this together, and he made this cannon. So we humans need to be able to do this. We need to figure out with wisdom the kinds of things that we need to put together. But if we're putting together something that's going to end up making us sick, that's crazy. So why are we doing it? We're doing it because these people are making a lot of money off of this. They've got electric lines running all over the place. If you go out anywhere in the country, you'll see these electric lines just running for miles all over the world. Somebody's making money from that. If you had a way to get electricity right out of the air, can you imagine? You'd just take away all the profits from the richest elite in the world. So this is one way that human beings is going to bring down the elite, is through knowledge. You see, somebody was asking me the other day, as I was going on one of these rants about, how the elite are doing this and they're doing that. They're saying, oh, okay, fine. Right, Dave? You got all the answers, right? Well, what's your answer? What do you want to do? You're cutting everybody down, but you don't give us any answers. And I replied, well, the answer is to get the word out. Knowledge is the answer. We the people, if we just know the truth, we can fix this. But you see, because we're being deceived, we think they're our only savior, that we've got to do what they say. But what if I could give you a way to have electricity in your home to power all the things that you need, to bring water up from the well? You have your pump, electrical pump. And I could do this for free. So yeah, we've got that, Dave. Solar power, right? Wind power and stuff. Well, you still have to have metal pieces, and factories have to make all these parts, and it's still, and it's not very efficient. But what if I told you that they're hiding something from you? What if I told you that the earth itself is so full of electricity and energy that you can get energy right out of the air? You can. And this is the one thing that if a few people got together and were able to get this out to the people, we could bring down the elite. Because you see, once you dry up their income, they make most of their money off oil. Why do you think we went to war in Iraq? Why do you think we're killing a billion people over there? Why do you think the elite want to go over there in Israel, right? Because the land's pretty? No, it's because of all the minerals and resources. Why do you think they want to kill all the people in Africa? It's because they want their land and the resources. Why do you think the Anunnaki ever came to the earth in the first place? Came here to mine the gold. So it's always been about greed. So what we got to do is, just like Kirk, remember, on that planet, he looked around and he used his brain, he used his noggin, and he found all the stuff he needed. We've got all the ingredients we need to bring down the elite, to take our country back, to take the world back. And one of those ingredients is love. All right, and I talk about that in all my videos. We just got to love one another. We've got to have the truth, because the truth is going to set us free. This deception is just what's killing us. But part of the deception, friends, is this energy. Oil, electricity, tires, gasoline, cars, all of this. Imagine if we took down just one of those things. Just take away the ability of the elite to control all the electricity and the energy in the world, all the power. See? Because if you had a way to come up with free electricity, you could run your car, your home, and just about everything else. You pretty much wouldn't even need them. Most of the reason that we go to work is to pay for our car and our electricity and our house. If you had free electricity, pretty much wouldn't need the elite, would we? But you see, before they allow this out, they will kill anyone who tries to let the secret out. But I'm going to tell you a few things today, and I think that as long as I'm not handing you a motor that sucks energy right out of the sky for free, they're probably not going to kill me. But the information is something you're going to have to use. And information is something that I think if we get the information out, I think we can foil them. But we've got to get the information out. So here's the information, friends. So let's start with, most of you think, well, free electricity would be solar or something. Again, it's not very efficient. It's not going to run your whole house or a whole city. It's not going to work. We've got billions of people on the earth. And it's great, but as of right now, it's not the best way. And here's the thing. Once you understand it, let me give you a very simple example. You ever go outside on a stormy day and you look up and you see lightning? Do you know how much energy there is in a lightning bolt? Do you know how many volts there are? I don't either. But I'll guarantee you, it's a lot. And where does that energy come from? Right out of the air. Simply with static electricity. When the clouds go by, you got ground. It's just like you take a balloon, rub it on your hair, and you get all that static electricity. Okay, well, the earth is huge and it has it's like a big battery. It's got all this energy in it. Clouds go by and it starts pulling those electrons out and it gets all moving around, and then wherever there's ground, it shoots down that electricity. So see, the electricity is there all the time. But because you're moving, you're disrupting the electrons, and you're getting them to excite themselves, and then they find the fastest path to ground. So if there's a mountain, and most of the mountains are made out of solid metals, iron, and it's made out of rock and minerals. So usually, if you've ever noticed that, many of you probably don't know this, but storm systems will follow and go towards mountains because it's electromagnetic and it's following the mountains because of the iron in the mountains. And it'll usually rain and snow heavier on the mountains. Not just because of the altitude and the elevation, but also because the clouds are actually drawn and attracted to the mountains. And lightning strikes will usually happen higher in the mountains. This is why if you have a house, you put a lightning rod on the top, because that lightning is going to strike the highest point, especially if it's solid metal. So you put a lightning rod, and if there's going to be a lightning strike, it's going to hit that rod. Well, I'm telling you this because literally, if a town would put a tall metal pole in their town, then anytime there's clouds in the sky, which is a lot of the time, the clouds go by, causes friction. It doesn't have to be a big bam lightning bolt, but it's causing this static electricity. It's going down that metal rod, and you can have that hooked up to a battery, and you can provide yourself with so many thousands of volts that way. It's just free electricity. All you need is wires and a big metal pole. Not just 20, 30 feet, but I mean, several hundred feet in the air. And you could provide, you can get a volt of electricity right out of the ground. Two dissimilar metals. You take aluminum, copper, pound them in the ground next to each other, and then hook that up to two wires and hook that up to a voltmeter, and you'll see there's about a volt coming right out of the ground doing nothing. Way up in the air with the clouds moving over like that, you're going to get all kinds of voltage. So it's very simple to make electricity. You just have to have a large enough tool to extract it from the earth. See, scientists know this. That's how they make motors. They wrap little gold copper wire and wrap it around. And they run magnets around like this, and it's just pulling the electrons. And as the electrons break free, they go down the wire, and you can use that electricity. So when you have a copper wire and an aluminum wire, you stick it in the earth, because of the two dissimilar metals, it's causing a disturbance, and that's causing the electricity to come up out of the earth. What you do is you're bringing up out of the earth just right there. It's just 1 volt. Problem is you need 110 volts to run everything in your house, right? How do you do it? Well, they know how to do it. They've been doing it for years. They don't want you to know about it. You see? You take that flow of electricity, just that 1 volt, and you wrap a wire, a copper wire around it. Every time you have a revolution, you increase the voltage. They do that in all the motors and everything. They've been doing it for years. And they can increase the voltage or decrease the voltage. That's why you got this power plant. It's producing hundreds of thousands of volts. And they're sending that down the line. But of course, when it comes into your community, you don't need hundreds of thousands of volts. You only need a few hundred volts, like 220. So they have these power stations just before they get to your town that decreases the voltage. And they've been doing this for years. They know how to use coils of wire to increase or to decrease, and this is called a transformer. You do this with a small, toy train, right? It runs on, say, 2-3 volts, but you plug it into the wall, you got 110 volts. How do you get it from 110 down to 2? By the amount of coils on that little black box, that on the plug-in. It's a transformer, and it changes the voltage. Every laptop and everything you have has a transformer because it runs on different voltage. So to increase the voltage, you do the same thing. That's how they, like on your television set. In the old televisions, they have that transformer in the back. So you're running 110 from the outlet to your television, but that transformer in the back of your television's running at about 75,000 volts. It's just that little transformer ups it from 110 to 170 or to 75,000 volts. So this is something that they know how to do. They've been doing it for years. Sometimes when they have these power lines going for miles and miles and miles, they lose voltage as they go into the air. So they have these transformers on the power lines so the electricity can boost itself back up and get more voltage because they lose voltage as they go. So they know how to do this. They could easily take the voltage from a tree, maybe there's 1.5 volts coming out of your tree. You can wrap a copper wire around that tree, and every time you do that, you're up in the voltage. You could power your whole house from a tree. Friends, this isn't secret. Any electrician knows this. And it's easy to figure this out, but the elite does not want us to know that electricity is for free. It comes right out of the ground. With a very simple, a few tools you can buy from Lowe's Hardware, you can transform that 1 volt right into your house at 110 volts. So this is how, from the ground, right outside your house, you can stick a copper and an aluminum pipe in the ground, run 2 wires, and run that through a series of capacitors and run your whole house. Then the only thing you need to do is make sure you have the right amount of amps. But there's ways that they can do this, and they know this. But they don't do it. How about fuel? Well, here's how you can fuel your car with water. Just go and put water in your gas tank and drive your car with water. All water is H2O. That means it's oxygen and hydrogen. Well, hydrogen is very flammable and combustible. People are running around today driving their cars on propane. It's a simple kit. You put it on there and it transformed the car from running a liquid gas to a, gas propane. Doesn't cost very much, just $300 or $400 for the kit. And anybody can do that to their car. Then all you got to do is get some hydrogen, right? Well, everybody's got water. Pour water in your tank, it's free. Well, how do you split the oxygen away from the hydrogen? Because once you've split the oxygen off, the oxygen just air, it just goes off in the middle of nowhere, right? So all you got left is hydrogen. How do you do that? Simple as this. You take the 2 dissimilar metals like we talked about before that you stuck in the ground, like aluminum and copper. It's better, in this case, you would use like a gold rod and a silver rod or a platinum rod. And you stick it in there, the two rods into the tank, so that when you put the water in, it's going to be long rods in the water. Then you take where these 2 rods come out of the gas tank, you make sure it's sealed, of course, or your water don't leak out. And you take these 2 rods and you hook them up to 2 wires, and then you plug that into your 110 outlet. Simple as that. Now when you plug it into 110, the electricity goes in to your water tank, and the negative and the positive current starts separating the hydrogen from the oxygen. And overnight, you turn that tank full of water into hydrogen, and you unplug your car and drive off. And that one tank of water is now enough to drive hundreds of miles. Because you see, hydrogen is far more combustible than regular gasoline, and it'll last you for days on one night's full charge. It's that simple, and that's how you can convert all the cars in America to use hydrogen, and yet they don't do it. The government knows this. It's that simple. There are people that are actually doing this to their cars, but when they go around bragging about it and telling everybody about it, usually what happens is that two guys come to their door with a black trench coats, black hats, and they want to know, where the car is, because they're going to take it. So if you do something like this, you've got to just get the word out through the word of mouth, and don't actually show people the car, because they'll come and take it. But this is what we got to do. We've got to get this word out. We've got to get people to understand that our world needs to be controlled by the human race and not by the elite. And once we can get the power out of the hands of the elite and back into our hands, we can take back our country, friends. So basically, that's kind of all I wanted to say. There's some other stuff I wanted to tell you about, how you can basically just make your car weightless, right? But I'll cover that in another video. That's another interesting thing that we'll cover in another video. A guy named Ledskin. What was his first name? Can't even think of it right now, but he built a castle down in Florida. And he discovered a way to basically get rid of gravity, so you could just float rocks or a car or your house. So basically, gravity is just magnetic. You take two magnets and they attract to each other. Turn them around, they repel each other. So all you got to do is change the electromagnetism of any object and it'll float. And it's very simple, and there's some people on the earth that are doing that right now. But this knowledge is not going to be let out to the public until we demand it, friends. And once your car is weightless, it doesn't require very much fuel to make it move. In fact, you can just get out and shove it like that, and it's just completely weightless. And, something that goes in one direction at a certain velocity and speed will continue in that same direction at the same velocity and the same speed until acted upon by another object. See, you just got to hit brakes. That's it. You just shove yourself and go until you want to stop, and you hit the brakes. You don't need fuel. Just a simple, small little motor just to get you going. And once you get going, you just take off and glide. But you see, there's so much that our Father in heaven provided for us that we could use. And we could have prosperity all over the globe. The problem is the greedy elite don't want us to have it, friends. So that's all I've got to say, friends. And you guys have a great day. This is David Vost. I'm signing out.